Did you know that in 1862, an entire village vanished arrest by a group of people whose names were never recorded? Or that on a freezing night in 1837, the last train through a mountain pass in New York disappeared with 36 passengers without leaving behind a single body? These stories are real, so terrifying, in fact, that newspapers at the time were too afraid to print them. You're about to hear true events so dark, so disturbing, they could shake even modern-day America. Don't be scared. There's still time to turn back. But if you choose to stay, just know this. Blink once, and your shadow might not come back with you. Did you know that in 1862, an entire village vanished arrest by a group of people whose names were never recorded? Or that on a freezing night in 1837, the last train through a mountain pass in New York disappeared with 36 passengers without leaving behind a single body? These stories are real, so terrifying, in fact, that newspapers at the time were too afraid to print them. You're about to hear true events so dark, so disturbing, they could shake even modern-day America. Don't be scared. There's still time to turn back. But if you choose to stay, just know this. Blink once, and your shadow might not come back with you. Deep in the forested heart of Pennsylvania, there once lay a hidden valley hunter's hollow. Almost no one knew of it, because no one went in, and no one ever came out. The people who lived there, 52 families in total, existed as if trapped in time. They farmed, chopped wood, tended their animals during the day, but as the sun dipped behind the trees, every door and window slammed shut. This was not just habit, it was law, because the people believed something ancient. When the lights go out, the shadows come out. That belief went back generations. Dinner was still on the table. The village elders said a secretive tribe once lived in this valley, keepers of the shadow eaters, restless spirits that fed on silence and fear. The valley was once sacred, forbidden, deadly. But when European settlers arrived in 1798, things began to go wrong. In 1803, the first family vanished. Their home was found untouched. No signs of struggle, except one thing, a shattered glass bottle by the window, smeared with blood. Year after year, more families disappeared, but the villagers kept quiet, because they believed, if you speak of them, you'll become their next meal. Then came the summer of 1845, and something felt wrong. Birds acted strangely, dogs howled without reason, and the trees, their shadows seemed to move by themselves. The elders whispered, "The shadows have awakened." Right then, a stranger arrived, Mr. Simon Derry. He claimed to be a historian, studying old tribal cultures of the region. He wore a fine coat, had a polite smile, but his eyes never blinked quite right. Nobody liked him, but no one dared confront him either. 3 days after he arrived, disaster struck. In one night, 4 families disappeared. No screams, no broken doors, only half-eaten meals, beds made, and not a single trace of any human being. Even the children gone. The entire village panicked. The clocks have stopped. The shadows have answered my children's call. Tonight it's our turn. They're standing beneath the window. There is no more time, but no one called for help, because once, someone had called the police, and their entire family vanished the following week. The only clue this time, a soaked and blood-stained journal found by the stream. Greater than he has returned. Ellen Wells' final entry. Villagers were certain now. Simon Derry had brought the shadows back. Some whispered he was one of them, descendant of the old shadow keepers. But no one dared accuse him. Then came September 23rd, 1845. Hunter's Hollow vanished completely the next morning. A forest warden who occasionally delivered supplies came by. The village was still there, but no one was in it. Houses untouched, beds made, meals cooked, toys scattered on the floor, but no people. No bodies, not even footprints. The livestock wandered aimlessly, eyes wide with fear. And the air was too still. The government sent investigators, but they found nothing. No blood, no signs of a struggle. Finally, the village was declared a haunted zone, its name erased from all maps. And over the years, only whispers remained. Travelers and hunters claimed to hear faint weeping from deep within the trees. And those who dared enter Hunter's Hollow, they never returned. If you're still watching this video, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon, because the rest of this series will uncover stories so dark, they've shattered people's nerves before. It was a cold, dark winter night, December 28th. A small village named Hudson Hill lay frozen in snow. Between icy mountains and a half-frozen river stood Hudson Ridge Station, silent and lifeless, except for one thing. The last departing train of the year, the North River Express. When the train pulled out of the station, it disappeared into a landscape of snow and silence, its lights fading into the fog of the mountains. No one aboard knew they'd never reach their destination. On board were 36 passengers and 5 crew members, heading home for the new year. Some were returning to family, some escaping the city for rest. Normally, the train would arrive there by 8:40 p.m., but the night passed, no follow-up, no explanation. To this day, no one knows who sent it. No train, no signal. The next stop was local legends whispered of dark entities sealed away beneath the earth, beings whose names were forbidden to speak, except for one chilling anomaly. He kept muttering in a hoarse whisper. A single, garbled telegraph transmission was received by the station operator. Turn the light. No origin. His name was Wallace Grims, the conductor of the missing train. The prints were larger than normal, and space too wide for any human stride. It was the only trace of life, or something else. Midnight Point was permanently closed to rail traffic. The entire Hudson Ridge route was declared unsafe and decommissioned. The government issued no detailed report, just a vague statement. The next morning, the railway company dispatched a search team. They followed the entire 32-mile route through snow-covered tracks, but they found nothing. No wreckage. No broken tracks. Not even a single wheel mark in the snow. Sometimes, a blurred beam of light slices through the darkness, and those brave or foolish enough to go near say, even if they return. It was as if the train had vanished, swallowed by the night itself. Only at one place along abandoned stop known as Midnight Point they discovered something strange. Enormous human-like footprints in the snow, scattered as if a chase had occurred. Digging through history, investigators found that Midnight Point once sat atop sacred land, belonging to an ancient native tribe. Exactly 7 days later, near the icy banks of the Hudson River, a man was found lying in the snow, half-conscious and frostbitten. At the hospital, doctors realized his mind was broken. The light went out, faces floated outside the windows, but they had no eyes. Their smiles made no sound. Your shadow might not come back either. The train didn't crash. It melted. Into time I was left behind, but my shadow is still on that train. Grims never recovered. The investigation was quietly shut down. Train lost due to natural disaster. Yet there was no disaster, and no evidence of one. To this day, the North River Express has never been found. But every year, on December 28th, near the old Midnight Point tracks, locals say they can still hear the faint sound of a train whistle. Their shadows don't. One man claimed that he woke in the middle of the night and saw someone staring at him from the other side of the window. Through the fog, it was his own face, but with only one difference. Greater than the eyes were completely hollow. If you're still watching, it means you're brave, but worse stories lie ahead. So hit subscribe, because if you vanish like they did. Old Mill Valley is nearly forgotten today, but in 1851, it was a quiet, agricultural village with a white wooden church at its center. Beside it stood St. Brigid's Cemetery. The cemetery held 72 graves, but official records listed only 71, but local elders whispered tales about grave number 72, calling it hollow. Unclear, no one's grave. This strange inconsistency was buried for years in question. In the spring of 1851, that rumor took a terrifying turn. One early morning, Father Ellis Tembor was walking past the cemetery when he noticed something strange. The earth around grave 72 was shaking, as if being pushed from below. When he moved closer, he saw bizarre footprints in the soil. Not human, but large, and leading away from the grave. The face was grotesque, the eyes nothing but deep, hollow pits, the body unusually tall and thin, so the church decided to give him a Christian burial. Shaken, the priest wrote in his journal, "Greater than there is something there. Someone has come out of that grave, but it's never been opened. How is this possible?" Digging into village records revealed a long-buried incident. In 1829, at dawn, a body was found hanging from a tree by the river. The authorities declared him an unknown vagrant. No one claimed the corpse, and the features were unrecognizable. He was buried in the final plot, grave number 72. No one thought this grave would become the center of a mystery that would haunt the town. In the following years, strange things began. Trees around the grave began to wither. The church bell rang on its own. Children were seen sleepwalking toward the cemetery. Her tea was half finished. The door was ajar, but no sign of her. One night she stepped out for a walk and never came back. Her bed was made. Occasionally, someone would vanish. Then came 1851, and true horror began. The first to disappear was Mrs. Beltha Jameson, a widow who tended to the graves. A week later, the schoolteacher Mary Finch vanished. On the wall of her home was a final message, written in blood. "Greater than it's looking for me now. Tonight, I will stand by its grave. I want it to remember me," he whispered. The village fell silent. Fear spread like fog. Father Tambor made a decision. Grave 72 must be opened. No one dared. But finally, a group of 11 men gathered one morning and began to dig. What they found was pure fear. With each chime, the lights in a different house flickered out until the entire village sat in complete darkness. No coffin, no bones, no fabric. When one worker leaned in to look closer, he suddenly stumbled back, his face pale, lips trembling. "I didn't speak. I just looked down. And as you keep walking, your body moves forward." How did it know my name? That evening, the villagers sealed the grave with stone and cement. But that very night, something else happened. The church bell rang 72 times, echoing through the valley without a single touch. Afterward, the town council quietly erased the grave from records. Official documents now read, 71 burials confirmed. One plot but the older residents know it wasn't a miscount. They say if you walk past St. Brigid's Cemetery late at night, your shadow gets stuck on the tombstones. But your shadow never follows. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button, because what's coming next won't just forget your name. It might take your soul with it. When people hear the name Salem, they often think of witch trials. But in the spring of 1869, the town earned infamy for something far more terrifying. A road where the sky was ripped open every night by screams. Yet no mouth could be found. Only the wind carried the sound of crying. The road was called Rosefield Lane, now abandoned. Locals simply call it the Screaming Road. It all began with a construction project. Salem's newly elected mayor approved a railway line through Rosefield-Lananode, rocky stretch on the outskirts of town, often swallowed in fog. The area was mostly farmland with just a handful of families. When the rail company began digging, they uncovered something strange. A small coffin, buried shallow beneath the soil. It was only 3 feet long. Inside lay the petrified remains of a little girl, her body turned to stone over time. The discovery shook the town. Digging through old records revealed that in 1819, a girl had gone missing in that very area. Her name was Evelyn Gray, only 7 years old. No death certificate, no burial record, no closure. But one letter from her mother had survived. It read, "She was standing at the window that night, talking to someone I couldn't see. When I tried to pull her back, she whispered, 'Mama, they're calling my name. I have to go. They said I'll become light again.' She never came back." After Evelyn's remains were unearthed, things began to change. Every night exactly at 12:30, Emma Pearson's scream echoed through Rosefield Lane, a young girl's voice, weeping, calling out, "Greater than Mama, they're not gone." People who heard it described uncontrollable shaking, nausea, some even passed out from the sheer intensity. One police officer, George Barrow, investigated the road. His report stated, "No wind. I stood in the center of the lane. Then came this deafening scream, a child crying from somewhere nearby. I flashed my light everywhere. No one. Only a small shadow darting into the trees, and the bare footprints left behind." Construction was immediately shut down. The road was closed. But it was too late. Within a month, for families living near Rosefield Lane packed up and left. They all reported the same thing. Small handprints on their windows at night, and a faint child's voice whispering, "Greater than you left me in the ground." One family said their young son woke up crying one night. He said he saw a stone girl standing in his room. "You're above," she told him. "I'm below. Why won't you lift me out?" The town's historical archivist, Mrs. Lauren, launched her own investigation. She discovered an old hidden ledger, a donation record from decades ago, describing a woman who secretly buried her illegitimate child, shamed and rejected by the community. The child had no name. Only one line was written, "Greater than child of light, whose cries vanish into the glow." Today, Rosefield Lane remains deserted. A rusted iron sign lies in the middle of the road, with something eerie imprinted on it. Tiny handprints, as if someone had pressed their fingers into the wet cement, but no one saw who made them. At night, thrill seekers sometimes go there with cameras. They say no sound ever records, but in the footage, a pale shape crosses the road. And, at exactly 12:30 a.m., every car's headlights mysteriously flicker off. One content creator shared his final recording. "Greater than I was reviewing the audio from last night with headphones on. Suddenly I heard a child's voice say my name, but I never said my name in the recording. That's when I realized the voice was coming from inside my room." At the southern edge of Kentucky, deep in Henderson County, sat a quiet stretch of farmland known as Morgan Farm. The place was still, heavy. The wind moved slowly. Birds were rarely heard, and on cloudy nights, the entire area felt like a sealed coffin of silence. The story of this land began with death and ended with a mirror that shows whoever looks into it the exact moment, place, and manner of their own death. In February of 1874, a widow named Clementine Morgan moved into the farmhouse with her 2 sons. Her husband had died in the war, and this land had been left to her as his only heir. The house was large, wooden, and aged. In the main room stood a tall, ancient mirror, its frame made of deep black wood. Carved across the top in Latin were the words, "Revelare mortem," revealed death. The first few days passed quietly, until one night, her eldest son, Joseph, told her, "Greater than Mama, I saw myself in the mirror, but I wasn't standing. I was on the floor. There was blood next to me." Clementine dismissed it as childish fear, a nightmare. But a week later, Joseph was found hanging in the barn. The police ruled it a suicide. No signs of struggle or foul play. Clementine whispered to the sheriff. Greater than he was never afraid of anything. But after he looked into that mirror, he stopped sleeping. Strange things began to stir in the house. Her younger son Theodore would cry late into the night, saying, "Greater than I'm not alone in here. There's someone in the mirror. He looks like me, but it's not me." One night was particularly horrifying. Clementine woke to find Theodore standing before the mirror, eyes closed, smiling. She called out to him. He whispered, "Greater than I'll die tonight at midnight," the mirror told me. That midnight, during a violent storm, Theodore vanished. His bedroom window was wide open, shattered glass scattered, and smeared across the mirror a bloody handprint. Now, terrified, Clementine tried to remove the mirror, but as she attempted to cover it, her eyes met its surface. She saw herself hanging from a chair in her room. At dawn, she was found dead, hanged, eyes wide open, staring straight at the mirror. The local authorities sealed the farmhouse, but the mirror was never removed. It was too heavy, 3 men couldn't lift it. In the years that followed, anyone who tried to live there met something unexplainable. An old man was found sitting before the mirror, long dead, body already decomposing. Next to him, a note, greater than I saw it long ago. A little girl once said she saw her mother die in the mirror. Her mother was alive at the time. 3 weeks later, the woman poisoned herself. A visiting writer claimed he saw the same thing each night, a shadowy figure standing inside the mirror, staring out. But the room behind him was always empty. Paranormal researcher Dr. Elia Burns studied the object. This is likely an ancient cursed artifact. It feeds on the soul. Those who gaze into it lose trust in their own reality. Some legends trace the mirror's origin to Spain, 1801, crafted by a mad beggar with knowledge of the occult. Every home it entered saw death follow within weeks. Eventually, the mirror was shipped to America through a nameless vessel, one whose crew disappeared one by one before it ever docked. Today, Morgan Farm remains abandoned, but thrill seekers sneak in with cameras at night. They claim the mirror doesn't reflect your real face, it keeps your features, but hides something else inside the eyes. A deep, unknowable darkness. One man shared his final video, greater than I was staring at the mirror. And suddenly, I saw myself, but behind me someone was standing. I turned, no one there. I looked again. Now he had his hand on my shoulder. I turned again, and this time, a cold hand touched my neck. Gladesfield, Virginia, January 1802, in the quiet little town of Gladesfield, nestled deep within Virginia, all medical care suddenly stopped. Up until that winter, the town had relied on one man, Dr. Jeremiah Aldricha, physician decades ahead of his time. He treated rich and poor alike, made house calls late into the night, and never turned away a patient. But on the morning of February 17, 1802, everything changed. That day, townspeople noticed the doctor's front door wide open. At first, it seemed he had simply stepped out. But as patients arrived and hours passed, one thing became disturbingly clear. The doctor was gone. And not just him, his assistant, and the 14 patients who had visited the clinic the night before, vanished. On the doctor's desk sat his notebook. The final entry read, "Greater than tonight, I will finally complete the cure. They won't need doctors anymore. They'll be healed forever." Blood was splattered across the room, not in pools, not from wounds, but as if the bodies had burst open from within. His surgical tools were clean, and on the wall, written with a bloodied fingertip, "Healed forever." The town sheriff initially dismissed it as the result of a breakdown religious mania, he called it. Until the next morning, a wooden box was found floating in the nearby river. Inside, 14 small glass vials, each filled with a red liquid. Tucked alongside them was a single note. Greater than 14 freed, no pain, no death, only life, differently. Also in the box, a pair of tiny boots and an old woman's cracked spectacles, items recognized as belonging to some of the missing patients. The town launched a full-scale search for Dr. Aldrich, and soon they found something. Just beyond the town's edge, in a collapsing warehouse, authorities uncovered a hidden laboratory. In the center stood a wooden operating table. Around it, strange symbols painted on the floor, foreign to any known science. In red ink, within a circle drawn on the ground, were the words, "Greater than to cure life, one must first cure death." And, hanging from the wall, a poster of a long-forgotten Latin healing incantation, beneath which was scrawled, "Greater than I am, no doctor. I am the guide to liberation. No bodies, no bones. Just the scent of blood and the circling of crows." 2 weeks later, a man named Vincent Gray reported something chilling. He claimed to have seen Dr. Aldrich walking through the woods alone, dressed in a spotless white coat, holding a lantern. "He looked right at me," Vincent said. "Didn't stop walking. Just said, 'You're still sick. When you're ready, I'll take you to—'" From that day on, a rumor spread through Gladesfield. If you're ill, truly ill, and alone, he comes. No pain, no suffering, no return. Years passed. The old clinic is gone now, but in its place stands a black stone monument, carved into its face. Greater than Dr. Jeremiah Aldrich, the healer who never returned, healed forever. And still, to this day, if someone falls deathly ill in Gladesfield, some say they stay quiet, because the doctor isn't trying to save you. He's trying to take you where pain doesn't follow, where healing means never coming back. Platte County, Nebraska. Built in 1888 at the edge of Platte County, Nebraska, a beautiful Victorian mansion once stood tall and proud, 3 stories, ornate wooden details, a wraparound porch, and a rose-colored roof beneath an iron canopy. They called it Elgin Ridge, but within 5 years, after 4 family murders, 2 mass suicides, and 3 mental breakdowns, the name was changed. Locals began to whisper, "Greater than the Jackal House." By the year 1900, no one would live there again. The Lamont family, 1889. The story began in 1889 when the Lamont family moved in. Husband, wife, 2 children, and a housemaid. Within just 2 days, neighbors noticed something strange. Around 4 a.m., a young girl from the family was seen climbing down from the porch barefoot, sleepwalking, descending into the yard like in a trance. The next morning, they found her naked, asleep on the grass, with a strange mark burned into her chest. It resembled the face of a jackal. Then came the horrors. The Lamonts woke up to find every mirror in the house shattered, black symbols painted across their walls, and severed chicken heads in their kitchen, though they owned no chickens. On the 14th night, it escalated. A neighbor heard gunshots and ran over. Inside, Mr. and Mrs. Lamont dead, the children missing, the maid hanging from the porch and written beside the bed, in blood greater than he knows. Police ruled it as shared psychosis. But that didn't stop what came next. The Felton family. 1892. In 1892, the Felton couple moved in. All was quiet for a week. Then came sounds beneath the floorboards, crying, screaming, dogs barking. But there were no dogs. One night, Harold Felton wrote in his journal, "Greater than I think the house is alive. The walls are watching. At 3 a.m., the floor breathed, and in my wife's eyes, I see someone else." By 1936, families had lived in the Jackal House. Each time, the pattern repeated. Week 1, strange sounds. Week 2, hallucinations, disorientation. Week 3, murder or suicide. The Paranormal Team -1942 in 1942. An investigation team from the Nebraska Anomalies Registry stayed for 24 hours. Their report was disturbing. One member claimed to see a creature in the mirror with a jackal's face. A woman investigator heard herself crying as a child beneath the floor, memories she had never shared. At 2:47 a.m., a male voice was captured in their recorder. "When it wakes up, you won't be here. Go back." In the basement, they discovered a hidden wooden box. Inside, a portrait of a man, his face disfigured, part human, part beast, handwritten pages repeating, "Greater than I am, the jackal, my home is within mines." One name was scribbled across the lid, greater than Daniel Van Horn, a former spiritualist who vanished in 1887. Records now suggest he built the house, not as a home, but as a mental prison, a cage for consciousness, reality, and time. Today, the Jackal House is abandoned. Entry is forbidden, but some teenagers still sneak in for dare videos. They return pale, silent, and they say, "The eyes in mirrors don't blink, shadows move, but no people do." And at 3:33 a.m., a window creaks open, and from it, you hear not a dog, but a human voice barking like one. Cliffside, Oregon, winter of 1877, along the icy cliffs of Oregon's coastline. A towering lighthouse once stood sentinel against the sea. It was called the Fairmore Beacon Light, a 3-story stone structure whose red lamp could be seen from a mile away, cutting through the fog like a watchful eye. The lighthouse was manned by only 3 people: Edgar Lang, the head keeper, Noah Briggs, assistant keeper, and Thomas Gilly, a 17-year-old boy who helped with chores. They were assigned for a 60-day rotation. But on day 31, history offers no answers. Day 31, the light was on, but no one was home. January 2nd, 1878. A supply boat arrived from the harbor with routine food and mail. The lighthouse lamp was glowing, but no one appeared at the windows. The door was ajar. Inside, hot tea still sat on the table. Beds were neatly made, no sign of struggle, no blood, no broken glass. But all 3 men were gone. A journal was found hanging by the wall belonging to Edgar Lang. The last entry was dated December 30th. Light did not fall, though the sun rose. We feel that the lighthouse is draining the light. The sea is silent, but the wind speaks, in a language I fear, but cannot understand. Beneath it, in red ink, a final note: greater than Thomas, no longer speaks. Noel keeps staring at the window. I know he is no longer here. Search parties scoured the cliffs. They found no blood, no footprints, no signs of violence, but what they did find was deeply unsettling. A pair of boots standing perfectly upright, as if someone vanished mid. A circle drawn on the wall, surrounded by long distorted handprints, and human, skeletal, an old Pendroid clock, frozen at exactly 3:17. And worst of all, beneath the lighthouse lamp, etched into stone: greater than light must not see, let the sea keep them. Theories from the edge of reality. Psychological researcher Dr. Mary Deverick proposed a disturbing idea. Perhaps this lighthouse was built atop a location where light and sound are equally dangerous. The beacon doesn't show light, it tears through reality. The men saw something humans were never meant to perceive. Though many dismissed this as delusion, things worsened. In 1902, another lighthouse worker took his own life. His final journal entry read, "I hear them again, the ones who vanished. They speak through the wind. We were in the light. That was the mistake." Present-day Fairmore Beacon Light has been shut down ever since. Tourism is forbidden. But every now and then, urban explorers sneak inside with cameras. They report chilling phenomena. Their watches all stop at 3:17 a.m. The sea remains eerily calm, as if holding its breath. And in the main hallway mirror, they see three shadows, one holding a lantern, but casting no light. Pennsylvania, winter of 1891, tucked deep inside a remote mountain valley in Pennsylvania. A mental treatment center was built, Sandhaven Asylum. The name suggested peace, healing, and hope. But those who entered rarely returned. And those who did couldn't even remember their own names. The facility had 48 rooms, 6 patient wards, and a single, ominous intake room. Above the intake room's iron door, a phrase was carved in steel. Greater than shed the name, begin again, minds read. Identities stolen. The first strange report came in May 1892. A woman named Margaret Thorne, admitted for depression and memory loss, suddenly screamed out in the hallway, "Greater than who am I? This isn't my name. Someone's putting new stories in my head." By the next day, she couldn't remember her doctor. She failed to recognize her parents. And when she looked in a mirror, she cried, terrified, claiming, "Greater than I was someone once, but now I'm just their shadow. These walls are putting someone else inside me." Within a month, 6 more patients suffered the same fate. Each one began believing they were someone entirely different. A young black boy insisted he was a European prince. A woman claimed she'd been dead for 17 years in his notes. Dr. Louis Barrett, a lead psychiatrist, wrote, "Greater than something here, these walls, this air, even the beds remove a patient's identity and implant something new. We don't know who we're actually healing." Then came January 1893. 7 new patients were admitted into the intake room together. By day 3, they all reported the same thing. Same name, same birth date, same memories, even the same dreams. They all claimed to be Elia Henry Ruth. But it got worse. The hospital supervisor, Mrs. Delilah Creek, vanished without a trace. During the search, staff broke into a sealed sub-basement. Inside were hundreds of ancient patient files. Each ended with the same handwritten phrase, "Greater than identity compromised." Memory written. One room's wall bore a chilling message, "Greater than no one leaves with who they were." Then came the great incident. On June 4th, 1894, every door, every light, every window suddenly sealed shut. No one could get in. No one inside ever came out. 3 days later, the doors reopened. What they found? No bodies, no signs of life, but on every bead a perfect human shadow, like someone had once been there and simply faded. Every mirror had one word, scratched into the glass, "Greater than not." No expert doctors, spiritualists, or government agents could explain it. Present-day Sandhaven still sleeps. The asylum is now abandoned. Those who enter report bizarre phenomena. Phone batteries instantly drop to 1%. Cameras fail to record. And if you look in a mirror, you don't see your face. Only eyes, staring back from someone you've never been. One YouTuber once went live at 2 a.m., whispering into his camera, "Greater than I'm inside the intake room. I just found a slip of paper. It says, 'Who you are is not your choice. We've chosen. I think I'm no one now.'" His live feed cut off moments later. He hasn't been seen since. Still know your own name. Then hit that subscribe button before Sandhaven finds a new you. This was the asylum where memories weren't lost. They were replaced. Next up, a town that disappeared without a trace. No one knows how. No one knows why.